Okay, now we are recording. All right, let's get started. And thank you all guys for participating in our monthly meetup, which we usually do in live, but since this situation, we started doing this online. And what I'm seeing, we actually have a awesome turnout because we did that most of the time in California, but now we can do it online. So everybody, people in Dallas, Chicago, wherever you are, you can participate as well. So here's agenda, what we gonna do. And by the way, do you guys hear me well, right? You do, okay. So here's what we gonna do. We have 3 sessions like usual. And the first session will be presenting by Talia Nassi, developer advocate at Split.io. And the topic is really interesting, actually, testing in production, something very arguable, but I'm very excited about that. Second, my favorite is actually topic is Ask a Manager. So Aparna, she agreed to be volunteer. So she's a QM manager, and we will have a opportunity to ask uncomfortable questions, all right, about the hiring and hiring processes. And then we have another interesting topic, mastering manual launches, is presented by Ersin, senior test engineer at Sweetgreen. And let's get started. And guys, I just want to know, like, who is the first time in our online meetup or in our meetups? Can you hit plus? That's very interesting. Yeah, first time. Wow, Carlos. Awesome, awesome. I see that we have nice. Yeah, that's great. We have a lot of people who is the first time. I'm very glad. So let me tell you like what we do and how we are doing. And yeah, we have sponsors, Atos University, AtosU.io. It is they are launching here in United States the full stack JavaScript development bootcamp. Another company, Test Pro, which I used to be a part of, they do one of the best QA bootcamps here in Los Angeles and in US. You can go to that link and just check it out. And next event, actually, I'll tell a little bit briefly about our next event. It's gonna be May 30th, which is gonna be this Saturday. It's gonna be a free online class for JavaScript development bootcamp. It's a quick start to build a web application. If you guys interested in, please join to that link. Well, about us, we do these meetups every month, actually, since last year, actually since 2018. And now we are one of the largest QA meetup groups here in Los Angeles for sure. We're actually the largest QA meetup group in Los Angeles. But across the country, we also do meetups in New York. We also did meetups in Seattle several times. We did meetups in Florida, San Diego, and so on. So I hope, very, very hope that we can soon meet up in live event. That's actually the part that I'm missing, really, because we have a ability to meet in person and do networking. So today we're gonna do networking. We're gonna do a networking here in Slack, and I posted earlier today. If you didn't get there. I'll post it right now one more time. Let me do this one more time in the chat. Okay, so all of us, including Aparna, Talia, and Ersin, we're all there as well, along with other QA managers and directors. So this is a great opportunity for all of us. Like, maybe you're not looking for a job right now, but you know, the world is small, so we never know. Like, maybe you will be moving to another state, and you can ask in Slack channel, and people posting their jobs there as well. So we're gonna do in the end of this session about this networking there in Slack. Okay. Yes, specific group for this channel, for this meetup is for networking, is a networking, and I posted in general channel. One more time. Okay, let me post it here, and in the Slack as well. Okay, so welcome, Talia, and I'll give you permission to share the screen. I'll stop to share the screen. Can you take it over? And welcome.
It says, Evgeny, it says that it's still disabled to screen share.
It's still disabled. Let me try. Yeah. Let me try again. Wait. Can you try it? I just enabled.
Yes.
Awesome, great. Okay. All right. Welcome, Talia, again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I'm also going to take questions at the end. So if you have questions, type them, and then I'll just answer all of them at the end. Okay, so let's get started. Cool. Okay, so I want to start off by telling all of you a story about something that happened to me a few years ago. I was interviewing for this test engineer position at this company, and I was super nervous. So I go into this interview, and I think I'm answering all the questions correctly, and everything's going pretty well. And then at the end of the interviewer asked me if I had any questions for him. So then I started asking him about their staging environment and how their releases work with the different test environments. And he stopped me and said that they don't have a staging environment, they test in production. And I was so shocked. What do you mean you test in production? Is this a trick question? Like, am I supposed to respond in a certain way? Like, I was so confused, and he could see that I was shocked. So he asked me to do something that I want all of you to do now. So I want everyone to think about the last feature that your team deployed. So think about it. Everyone has it in their head. Okay. So is it working right now in production? How do you know? Your users haven't reported anything to you. Your alarms haven't gone off. So you assume that it's working, but you don't know. Testing in production is the only way to know that your features are working in production right now. So testing in production means testing your features in the environment where your features will live, but it's not a replacement for all of your testing, and it's not the end of the world. So just a quick intro about me. I'm Talia. This is my contact info. I'm on Twitter. I'm the dev advocate at Split, and my passions include Chipotle, breaking my features prior to launch, and testing my coworkers. So what do I mean by testing my coworkers? I test their reactions to things that I think are funny. I'm also a Warriors fan, so this one was particularly fun for me. Anyway, so after the interview, I went home and I did my homework. I was an experienced test engineer. Like, why have I never heard about testing in production? And if it's so great, why aren't more companies using it? So most companies and all the companies that I had worked for previously use a test environment or a staging environment. And just like a quick show of hands, like how many of you use a test environment or a staging environment? Okay, great. And I'm sure that none of them are an exact replica of production. I'm not even going to ask. I know that they're not. So testing environments really are not the way to go here. So let's talk about why. So through my research and experience, here's what I've learned. Staging environments are expensive to maintain. So if you just take into account a basic website architecture of just web servers sitting in front of application servers that query a database and then add in like a memory-based cache, you're looking at over $100,000 per year. And that's not taking into account the cost of software licenses, support, infrastructure, and this is per staging environment. So if you have 2 staging environments, that's $200,000. If you have, I spoke with a company yesterday that was using 8 staging environments. They're literally spending almost $1 million just on staging environments. It's crazy. The next thing is that staging environments, the test results that you have from staging do not always match the test results that you get from production. So I'm sure all of you have experienced this, but imagine you're testing a feature in staging and you worked so hard on testing every requirement and you went through the documentation with the product owner and you worked with your developers to fix all the bugs, and your end-to-end tests are passing in staging. So you sign up on the feature and you launch it to production, and what happens? There's a bug. So these environments are different, plain and simple. Production includes data that staging doesn't have. So you're never going to know the differences between your test environment and production until you test in production. Okay, so picture this. You are testing a high priority fix for a feature and you log into staging to test it, but staging is down. You get the 404 screen of death. So you ping the DevOps guy, but he's not answering. So you ping someone else and they tell you to open an IT ticket, and then you have to get your manager to escalate it. And meanwhile, you're testing this high priority ticket and no one seems to care. So no one's gonna get a call in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner if staging is broken. No one cares. Okay, the load in staging does not match production. So when you think of the number of people who use your staging environment versus your production environment, the difference is a lot. And because the load is different, the accuracy of speed and lag times is not going to be correct. And at the end of the day, I've never heard anyone speak highly of their staging environment. Okay, guys, I know what you're thinking. I know that testing in production is just such a weird concept, and you're thinking like, okay, that's nice. Some people can test in production, but I can't. I know what you're thinking, but what's the first thing you do right after you deploy a feature? You go to production and you test it, right? Okay, so some more things I learned when doing my studying and when I was learning about testing in production is that it only works when the whole team owns product quality. So it's not just the test engineer's responsibility or the QA engineer's responsibility or the QA team's responsibility to own the success of a product. It's the entire team's responsibility. It also only works when you test early and often, because the earlier you start, the earlier you'll find bugs and defects. It also only works when you trust your team and your product. So what do I mean by that? Companies don't test in production because of this fear and this lack of trust in their systems. And for the same reason, they refuse to invest in the tools and the process changes that will generate that trust. And I know that it's risky, and I know that it can affect real end users, and it can affect reporting and business decisions, and it can affect third parties that your software is integrated with. But we're going to go through how to do this safely, and we're going to address these risks and set this up together. So we're going to go through the 4 steps of testing in production and how to set it up safely. So the first step is to install the necessary tools. And the first tool that you need that's really the key to testing in production is feature flagging. Feature flagging is a way to decide who sees which features. And it's basically a runtime enabler. So it's used to hide, enable, or disable features at runtime. If you think about the code behind a feature flag, it's basically just an if-else statement. And I'll show you that in a second. So here's what it looks like. So this is how I kind of like envision feature flagging when it comes to testing in production. So our developers would create a feature flag from the UI, which I'll also show you in a minute, and then target all of our internal teammates. So this includes dev, QA, product, design, our automation bots. So anything related to the feature can only be seen by the users that are inside of the feature flag, because the default for the flag is off right. Excuse me. The default for the flag is off right now. And then all these people on the right, these end users, they're not going to see anything related to the feature because they're not in the feature flag. So think of this as like a bubble. So if there happens to be a bug, you see this little ladybug in my new feature, if there's a bug, it has no impact on your end users because they don't have access to it. Only your internal team will see any issues. And then your team can go in and fix any bugs. They can verify all of the proper functionality while the feature flag is off and while your end users cannot access the feature. And then once you know that your feature is working in production, you turn the flag on, already knowing 100% that your features are working in production and you didn't break anything that was existing. And now your users are happy and they're dancing because they have a perfect feature. And then you repeat this process for every new feature. So every feature has its own feature flag. And I know that it can be overwhelming when you have a lot of flags and a lot of features that are in your feature flagging system and you don't know which combinations to test. The best thing you can do is talk with your product owner to prioritize what the flows are, and then together with your data analyst, you can choose what the most important flows are that need to be automated. And again, you want to target your automation bots inside of the feature flag, which I'll show you in the UI also. And then when you're testing in parallel with feature flags, after you feel comfortable and you know the release went successfully, you can delete the feature flag in the UI and in the code. Because, you know, stale code is bad code. You don't want like old stuff sitting there. I also have another video that goes a lot more into detail about feature flag maintenance that you can look up, and it goes into just all of the best practices when it comes to this. But I'm going to walk you through how easy it is to create a feature flag in the feature flagging framework. So this is what it looks like in Split. Basically, all you do is hit a button that says Create Split. The first thing you need to do is name your flag, and you'll include this name in your code. So it's important that you remember what this is, just like copy and paste it into your code. And then the traffic type. The traffic type defines what differentiates the people who see your feature and the people who don't see your feature. So this can be by device, by employee, location, user, whatever you want. I'm going to show it to you by user. And then all you have to do is hit Add Rules. And this is where you can set up your targeting rules. So notice in my targeting rules, I'm saying that myself and the developers and product and the designers and my automation bot can see and interact with this really cool feature. And everyone else, if your name is not in this list, you can't see anything related to my feature. So this is kind of what it looks like in the code. It's going to say if the user is in the flag, you're going to give them treatment on. And if they're not in the flag, you're going to give them treatment off. And then this is what my test looks like. So in my automation script, I'm going to log in as my automation bot, the same bot that was in the feature flag, and I'm going to perform whatever actions I need for the test. And then I'm going to expect that really cool feature to work. And that's it. That's how easy it is to set it up in the UI. And the cherry on top of the cake here is that when we turned on the feature flag in production, we already knew that the feature was working, so there were no surprises. Okay, so the next tool that you need after feature flagging is an automation framework. So this is really important because it's not scalable to test everything manually, especially with the sensitivity that comes with testing in production. So you want an automation framework that's really easy to adopt, easy to debug, one that has really good reporting, and a good support community. So I'm just going to stress the good reporting, because when you have a test that fails in production, you want to know exactly what happened and what's going on. You don't want to have to like dig through errors and try to decode it. You want to have really good reporting and just make it as clear as possible. The next thing is a job scheduler. So this can be a simple cron job or through something like Jenkins. And this is just going to run the test for you every hour, every couple hours, whatever increment you decide. A question that I get all the time when I give this talk is, why not just run the tests in a loop? This is twofold. So basically, the first thing is that it's overkill. You don't want to run the tests in a loop, because then you're telling yourself that you don't trust the tests enough and you need them to run to build your confidence. So you can set up the tests to run in your builds pipeline. You can have them run every hour, every incrementally, whatever you and your team decide. But you definitely don't want that overkill. You also just want to trust your tests. Something I like to do is I like to watch my tests run 20 times, 30 times on my machine in production, and it'll build my confidence. And then when I push them up, I'll know that they're working and I'll know that everything is fine. Okay, so it's also really important to have a good alerting tool that can be integrated with your job scheduler. It's important that everyone on your team, from product to design to engineering, like everyone is on call. And again, why is that? It's because everyone on the team owns product quality. Okay, so these are some of the tools that I've used for testing in production that I'm comfortable with. So for feature flagging, I've used Split and Launch Darkly. For my automation framework, I've used Robot Framework, which is my absolute favorite automation framework, no questions asked. Robot Framework is super easy to understand, and like, this isn't an ad, like, I just love Robot Framework. And then Puppeteer with Jest is also good for JavaScript, and then Protractor for Angular applications. For job schedulers, Jenkins, Circle CI, Travis, it's all the same. And then for alerting, I have PagerDuty and Slack. And basically what you can do is configure like the really major alerts, like critical things that are failing, you can have them on PagerDuty, and then like less critical things, you can have those alerts on Slack or whatever you decide. Okay, so after you have all of your tools set up, the next step is to carefully create your test data. Oops. Okay, so basically you need a way to create and manipulate test data in production without affecting real end users or any data and analytics, right? So this is our problem. We don't want to affect any real end users. So a solution is to create a consistent naming convention for all of your test users. So these users are going to act like real users and they're going to look like real users, but only we would be able to interact with them. So a way to do this is to create a Boolean like is test user or is test or whatever you decide for your team, and set that equal to true. And then in your data dashboard, like with Datadog or Looker or whatever you use, you can exclude all the actions done by users whose is test user Boolean is set to true. And then you have a back-end flagging system that identifies all the testing entities. So if the flag was on, you know that this page or this object or this thing that's in your application is a testing entity because it has this flag, and it should not be included in any data and analytics. And then when you have your test, you log in as your test user, and you can hard code like this test is going to log in as this user, and it's going to go to this test page, and it's going to interact with this test object. And if it doesn't find any of those things, the test will fail. And that way you can make sure that you don't interact with a real person, like a real end user, or like any of your real end user data. So basically in your automation scripts, you make sure that your test entities only interact with each other, and you have a predetermined guideline for all of your testing entities, whether it's a Boolean or a flagging system or whatever you decide. And this is how you can create and manipulate testing entities in production. So super important. So the next step is to write your test. So you have your tools, you have your data. Now what do? Writing your tests with BDD, behavior-driven design, is my favorite way of writing tests because it's easy to read and it's easy to write. Robot Framework, again, makes this just super easy. Simple given, when, then with Gherkin Cucumber. This is my favorite way to write tests because it's super clear, and especially if you're working with a product owner who is not super technical, these tests will give you that clarity that they need. Yeah, I love Robot. Okay, and then in terms of setup and teardown, it's important that you set up alerts for each part of your testing cycle, and this includes setup and teardown. So when you're setting up your tests, you want to clear your cookies and do your login with your test user. And then in your test, you want to perform whatever actions you need to, validate whatever functionality you need to. And then in the teardown, you can undo everything that the test did and make sure that you clean up everything that the test did. And what's important to remember here is that if any step fails, whether it's the cleanup, whether it's the test, if anything fails here, you need to get immediately alerted and the test needs to stop, because this means something is wrong. This means you shouldn't move on to the next test. Okay, so the next step is to deploy to a production canary. And what this does is it allows you to slowly roll out your feature and your change to a small subset of users before you roll it out to your entire user population. So basically what this does is it minimizes the impact if something goes wrong, and it provides risk mitigation. So at the end of the day, like if you use the feature flagging process for testing in production and you accidentally miss a bug, like if there is a bug in production and the feature flag is on, would you want 100% of your users to encounter this issue or 1%? So this gives you like that bubble of safety, another bubble of safety. And then what this also allows you to do is just to identify the issue, roll back to a good version, and then fix it in a controlled environment. And something that I really recommend with canaries is to always have your infrastructure and configuration changes released with a canary, just because these changes are usually pretty sensitive and you just want to make sure that you roll them out little by little. And then when you set up a canary, it's like super straightforward in the UI in your feature flagging system, that there's basically just a lever and you can just drag that to say what percentage you want to allocate traffic to, and then you can slowly build that up as you build up your confidence. And then what if there is an issue with your canary code? Like what if you do release a bug? Just stay calm, like ask yourself if it's okay if your users see this. If yes, keep the canary as is and fix the bug. And if not, then just return the canary to 0%, fix the bug, and then redeploy. Okay, so let's talk about risk mitigation and summarize that. So before your launch, use feature flags to target users. And then after launch, use production canaries to limit the audience just in case something did get out. Okay, so the outcome of this process, like this 4-step process, was really amazing. Our developers and our QA and our product, everyone had a higher confidence in our releases because, again, we knew that our features were working. And then we had an increased developer velocity. So the velocity of our sprints increased because we spent less time fixing bugs and more time creating value for our users. Okay, testing in production promotes a proactive engineering culture. So what that means is I don't want to wait until something breaks, have a user report it to me, and then fix it. I want to find out what's going on and fix any issues before the user ever sees anything wrong. I want to be proactive. I don't want to be reactive. And then long term, this again minimized our user interaction with bugs and defects, and it really just ensured a great user experience. And then just a note on performance testing in production. Yes, it's possible. You want to do it at a time with low traffic, and it's better to do it on purpose and control the outcome because you honestly need to be prepared. So something I did at my previous company is the engineering team, like select members had to wake up at 3 a.m. so that we could perform a performance test in production. And it went great. And we knew that, that our system could handle the load that we were testing with. So I know 3 a.m. is not ideal, but you want to choose a time with low traffic, and this is how you know that your systems are working in production. So just a note on how to handle third parties. So when handling third parties, what's worked best for me is to have a header in the API request that you send to the third party, and then work with the third party and tell them, hey, like any request that you get with this header is coming from a test. So I want you to handle it differently, and tell them, just tell them how you want them to handle it. If you want them to just like disregard it or treat it in a different way. I've done this a few times with a bunch of third parties, and I've never had a problem. Like they've never resisted or anything. Like it's honestly just a team effort. So that's what I would request for third parties. Okay, and then something else that always comes up is I always get people who come up to me and say, Talia, like I just cannot test in production. Like it's really just not possible for me, and it's not possible for my team. And I loved your presentation, but what can I do, because testing in production is just not possible for me? So to those people, I would say spin up a containerized environment per your build. So you can use Docker to spin up all of your microservices. But just remember that the more dependencies, the more complicated this gets. And when you're testing in a containerized environment, it's a little bit different than when you're testing in production. You need to know which version of Docker will be used in production and test against those versions. You also need to run separate tests for each individual microservice, as well as all of them together. It's also not the most secure place to do testing, because hackers are targeting these systems that are hosted in containers, and they're usually not secured properly. Again, it's also super expensive. If you think of all the number of times that your developers are pushing up code, and that that environment needs to be spin up, it can be super costly. So testing in a containerized environment is good. Like it's still a good option. It's just not as good. Okay, let's talk about non-production tests. So we covered testing in production. So now let's talk about everything else. So the non-production tests. So something that I want to make super clear is that I'm not telling you all to go to work tomorrow and tell your VP of engineering that you need to dump staging right away. All I'm saying is that you need to think about what value you're getting from your staging environment. You can still use staging for pre-production testing, but it won't give you the same confidence that production will give you. And you can use staging for financial systems if you abide by like SOX compliance and GDPR and all that fun stuff. These tests should be tested ahead of time and not in production. These privacy and data related efforts should also be tested in staging and not in production. So if you think of like this bubble of like all of your tests, and then in that bubble you have your end-to-end flows, and then in the end-to-end flows you have your production tests. So there are tests that are not production tests, and that's due to these like data and privacy and like other things that your company just might not want you to test certain things in production. So that's that. So if this is something that you wanted to do, there's a few steps that I would recommend to shift your company's testing culture. So the first is just to explain like why the pros outweigh the cons for you. So I'm not even going to ask this, like I know all of your staging environments are unreliable. And then are there frequently issues that could have been caught if you were testing in prod? Like obviously yes, but you want to bring up that conversation with your manager or VP or whoever makes these types of decisions. And then use examples from the past. So like if you recently merged something and it broke something in production and you could have caught it if you were testing in production with feature flags, like this is something that you can bring up to back up your case. And then it's also important to propose a path forward. Like you can't just go to management with problems, you have to go to them with solutions too. So things like taking time in your next sprint to figure out if feature flagging is right for you. Like Split has a free version that you can go in and play with and just figure out if it's like right for you. So I would try that. So just with like my team, like after we started testing in production, we used to be scared of deploying new features, and we used to have debates of whether or not to deploy code on Fridays. Like now we don't fight about that, we fight about other things. And then once we started moving more and more things to being tested in production, like these discussions and this fear stopped. So we're not afraid of testing in production. We're not afraid of deploying code on Fridays because we have this secure process in place. And then again, the lead time to know if something was wrong was reduced, and the confidence of our releases has been amazing. Okay, so there's always going to be those people who say that testing in production will never work. It's just not possible. You can't do it, blah, blah, blah. And to those people, I say 3 things. Number 1, staging will never fully represent production. Number 2, staging is a sunk cost. And number 3, these people, these negative Nancys, they're not my target audience. They'll either get on board or they're going to die off. Not die, die off. Okay, so just to summarize like this process, if you want to test in production, the first step is to install the necessary tools. So feature flagging, your automation framework, your job scheduler, and your alerting tool. And then make sure that you create test data in a way that your test entities only interact with each other. And then write your tests and make sure your teardown cleans down your test, and make sure that if any part of the testing process fails, that you get alerted. And then launch your feature behind a feature flag, deploy to a production canary, and have a drink. Okay, so in case you have not been paying attention at all for the past 30 minutes, I want you to take away 2 things from this talk. 1, no one cares if your feature is working in staging, we care if it works in production. And number 2, the only way to know if it's working in production is to test it in production. All right, that's all I have now, guys. So again, here's my contact info. I'm on Twitter, you can email me. I see my chat going a little bit crazy right now, so I'm gonna open that up. And
I think the last question is pretty interesting.
okay, let's see.
Like Talia, you mentioned that testing in production is everyone's responsibility. What is the role of QA in this model? Will be my job replaced?
No, it will not. Wait. Okay, so right now I'm in. I don't see the chat that you guys are talking about. I see.
Do you see the Q&A button on the bottom?
I see Zoom webinar chat.
Zoom webinar chat, and you should see also like.
Oh, here I see it. Yeah.
You got it, right?
Yeah. Okay, let me just open this.
Yes, and Sergey, yes, we will be recording. I mean, we're recording this session, and this session will be posted in the Slack that I posted. Yeah.
Cool. So I'll just go from top to bottom. So, Kabri Guda, I'm sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly. Yes, we consider production testing, but cannot avoid testing and staging environment prior. Are you saying totally not testing and staging at all? So I'm answering this now, and I'm saying that if it's possible for you not to test in staging and just test in production using feature flags, I highly recommend it. It gives you so much more confidence. You know that your feature is working in production. Like, I don't care if my feature is working in staging, I care if it works in production. And if it's possible to skip that middle step, I'm gonna do it. So if you have things like data issues, or like your company is not letting you or whatever, like if you just cannot test in production because of the specific flow, then like you can use staging, and it's like the standard that most companies use. But every big company, Netflix, Amazon, Google, Facebook, like everyone is starting to test in production now. So you can use staging. I just would recommend not to. Okay. At least we have to do regression testing to know the existing features are not broken. Like you can do regression testing in production. You can set up a suite of regression tests that will run in production, and just make sure that your setup and teardown are there. So that can totally happen in production. Okay, this is kind of a long one from Ishmael. I agree with you. I'm a consultant at a healthcare company. Oh, that's cool. And they use C# WebDriver. I've walked the automation team framework and pointed out various challenges. At the same time, I'm tempted to promote RF with little interest. Since you are using your automation solution, what strategies did you use to convince a non-Python developer group to break the cadence of staying with a single coding brand for both development and automation? So robot framework, I'm assuming RF means robot framework, and if it doesn't mean robot framework, then tell me now.
I think it is.
Okay, great. Love robot framework. So just in any situation, it's good to have your development and your automation be in the same language. And what this does is it gives your developers the opportunity to write automation scripts so that you're not the only person who's responsible, for writing these tests. So when you have, even though robot framework is Python based, you can, it'll benefit anyone because with the given when then, like the gherkin cucumber solutions, it doesn't have to be written specifically in Python. It's keyword driven, so anyone can write tests using robot framework. I hope that answered that question. You mentioned that testing in production is everyone's responsibility. What is the role of QA in this model? Will my job be replaced? Okay, no, your job will not be replaced. The role of QA in this is to be responsible for the automation part. So it depends if your developers are doing automation. It depends if they have a say in your automation process. Like if your developers are writing scripts also, like they could also have a hand in this. But the way that my team setup was that worked really well is like our developers would write the functionality of the feature, and at the same time that they started the functionality, the code for the functionality, I started writing the test. And then when they were done, my test would also be done at the same time, so that when they deployed their code behind the feature flag, I also deployed my test to start running. So then my test would run with the user that was in the feature flag. And then if anything was ever caught, it would be done before the feature flag was turned on. So the roles and responsibilities of this process are a little bit different with each team, but I suggest that like if you have a QA team that like they're responsible for the automation, because like you guys obviously like know the product better than anyone. Cool. Could you tell me a little bit, oh, this is from Eugene. Hi, Eugene. Could you tell me a little bit more about your role as a developer advocate? Sure. So as a developer advocate, I get to work with developers basically at a ton of different companies about how they approach feature releases and how to optimize what they're doing in terms of feature flagging and experimentation and A/B testing. So my role is really fun because I also get to speak at a lot of conferences and meet a lot of people. So yeah, I get to work with so many different developers, and I'm constantly learning from everyone that I meet. So I've only been at this company for like 2 months at Split, but I just love it. Yeah, great. Okay. And Yevgeny, tell me if I'm like going over time, because I know
Let's do one more question.
Okay. Can I do 2? Because this one's really short. What languages do you typically code in when testing? Python is my favorite language, like hands down. It's also the best language, and I will fight you on this. So Python is the answer to that.
Mine too, by the way.
Yay! Okay. Let's see. do you see this type of model working for an e-commerce company that has to test with a lot of payment transactions? Why or why not? Yes, you can absolutely test this with e-commerce. You can test this with retail. All you would have to do is set up a test card or a test payment method. And then what you can do is in your end-to-end flow, you'll use that test card or that test payment method, and then in the teardown for that test, make sure that you issue a refund. So you're also testing the refund flow in the teardown of that test. So as long as you have the right data, like it is possible, like don't be afraid of like transaction-based tests in production. It's not a big deal.
All right.
Cool. I can answer the rest of these in Slack for you guys. But thank you. This was great. Thank you for the questions.
That's amazing. Thank you very much, Talia. Let's move forward, and we have our next session is Ask a Manager with Aparna.
Hey.
Hi, Aparna. Welcome. And Aparna is a QA manager at Sweetgreen. Okay. Let's start with questions. And
hi guys. I hope everyone's doing well, staying safe, and I'm ready for my interview.
Well, first of all, Aparna, before we're going to start with questions and everybody can see this, can you tell a little bit about Sweetgreen and about your company?
Yeah, so I actually asked this a lot, and I'm asking this a lot recently to everyone that I'm interviewing. So this is a good question for me. I'll see how I can answer it. So Sweetgreen was founded by three friends who went to the same university in Washington, D.C. It was a concept that was born out of a need when they were not able to find the right kind of food, the right food that everyone should be eating. So the main goal of Sweetgreen is to connect people to real food. So that said, we source our food directly from our farmers. We are a chain of restaurants across US. We have stores mainly in the East Coast, but recently, like 3 years ago, we have expanded to the West Coast, and we are trying to grow more in other regions as well. But on the whole, like we are a chain of restaurants that source our food directly from farmers. We have multiple different menus throughout the year, which Ersin would be covering in a little while. But otherwise, yeah, that's the main idea behind Sweetgreen and how it was born and what we do today.
I usually ask next question in the end, but I want to do it right now. Like,
okay.
Are you guys hiring during this time?
Yes, we are hiring a lot. We're hiring for multiple different positions across engineering team. But I'll speak for QA. We are hiring for a QA director today, and also looking to grow our engineering team, QA engineering team. Our test team today is mostly manual. We have Ersin, who is a very passionate tester and who has, learned a lot of automation testing, and he's been helping us part-time with automation tests. But we are thinking of increasing that engineering team and putting a lot of effort in hiring for multiple different levels. So senior, mid-level, and yeah, multiple different people at those levels.
Okay, great. So guys, pay attention now.
Yes, and I will share the job descriptions in the networking channel in a little bit.
Awesome. All right, let's go with the first question. Like, Aparna, what are you looking for in the candidate? Let's assume that candidate passed recruiter or HR screening, like phone screening, and then he goes to you. So what would be your expectation?
I mean, it depends on the role that we are hiring for. So today, if I'm interviewing a senior level QA engineer, I would be looking for his test experience across multiple different kinds of testing, because this would be a role where we would, as a team, we would look up to this person as a subject matter expert and look for him for answers. So we want someone who is more technically strong, but also has the right attitude, needs less to no supervision for the most part, knows what's happening in the QA industry, and knows what we need. So this is what we're looking for at senior role, but it could change for a mid-level where we want people who are eager to learn, eager to grow. So yeah, it depends totally on the role.
Would be that specifically attached to some languages or technologies, or like for senior role, you would be open to any other languages?
I would be lying if I say we are open to every language. But I mean, we do prefer someone with JavaScript experience. But I know it's hard. I know most of the automation testers today, they're either using Python or Java for the most part. So anyone who is eager to learn, we welcome them. They need not be experts in JavaScript at this point, but if they have that right energy to learn and grow as a JavaScript programmer in the future, we'll take them.
Jazz is pretty right now in high demand in any way, what I'm seeing. Maybe 5 years ago, the main job description was like Java or Python, but I see a lot of job description getting JavaScript.
That's
interesting. All right. So can you share with any your favorite interview questions then?
Yeah. So my favorite part of the interview is actually a process that we do. I think most of the other companies do too. Like, it's a take-home test, but for us, we don't do a take-home test. We do a more interactive coding challenge with our dev and also QA. So this gives us a chance to work more closely with the candidate that we're talking to. Not just, it doesn't just let us analyze their programming skills, but also understand if they're the right team fit, if they have the right attitude, if they're ready to take feedback, and if they could, if we can gel well, which is very important for my team. So I feel like this is really important in our interviews. But if I have to tell what my favorite question is, then it'll be definitely what you asked me first. What do you know about Sweetgreen? What does Sweetgreen do? That question tells me how much the candidate took an interest to learn about the company that they might work in the future. So I feel like if they answer that question pretty well, they would use that. They would have that same curiosity when they are on the job later down.
Okay, I think the next question, evolving from the previous one, like, what about red flags, right? Let's say the interview goes and something happened, or I know that it happened before. Like, what are those red flags usually for you?
Yeah, so a couple of red flags that we've seen, or I've noticed in my interviews, is someone who's giving very long answers. They're not watching the time. They're not good listeners, and they're kind of cutting you off when you are speaking. I feel like that that attitude might not work in the team. I feel like skills and technology and skills can be learned, but the attitude and the team spirit is something that has to come with the person. So that's a big red flag for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, makes sense. Any resume tips and hints that you can share?
I'm a first-time manager, and this is my first time going through a lot of resumes. So the few things, I think there's a very basic. I think everyone's it's on everyone's mind at this point, but I'll just put them out. So one thing that I've seen in some of the resumes are like they're very word heavy. They don't really reflect the right tech, their right skill set. As as soon as you see the resume, it doesn't reflect their right experience. It's very word heavy. You would have to like drill down and find out what their true, where their true knowledge lies, which I don't think anyone today has time to do. Out of like 200 resumes, it's hard to find the right resume if everything's word heavy. The other thing is very generic, having very generic statements. Like if you have a good amount of like if you worked towards providing a good test coverage as part of your recent job experience, I would want to see some kind of metrics or some kind of statistics if possible in that resume, saying like, oh, I worked with a team that achieved 95% test coverage or something like that, because otherwise it's more relative. It doesn't really tell me how much work they have done as part of that particular responsibility. So I think those two things really help in identifying the right person.
So being specific will be helpful, right?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. And we have a couple of questions from Q&A. How often is whiteboard coding done in your interviewing process?
It's for every interview that we're doing today. So for senior QA engineer and mid-level QA engineers, we definitely want to continue doing whiteboard sessions. But for QA analysts, it's more. It's based on the level that we are hiring for.
Mm-hmm. Eugene is asking, do you ask candidates algorithms and data structure during the interview in person?
No, we don't. So our coding challenge, I don't want to give out too much about our coding challenge, but our challenge is more around, our coding challenge is more around things that you would do as part of your job. So maybe like a UI test, maybe like an API test, like give you a sample page and then ask you to write a UI test around it. But it's not, we don't go that in depth.
All right, next question is kind of interesting. How to differentiate talking too much due to just being nervous versus them having being bad people skill or being rude?
I think it comes with a little bit of experience, at least for me at this point. I mean, I'm a bit nervous now. I'm not a good public speaker, but I don't think I'm being rude. So I feel like it comes with experience. I've been like talking to a lot of people recently. So you would know if a person is nervous versus if they're being rude. I had a person who was checking his phone while talking to me, not focusing on the questions that I'm asking, but also not giving me a chance to talk. So, I think it just shows up.
That's kind of, you can feel naturally, I guess.
Yes.
How many pages should be resume?
I think anything more than 2 pages is a lot, I would say. Again, it's tough. Like if a person who has 15 years of experience, if their experience should be shortened to like 2 pages, I know it's tough. But then just putting it in a format where you're highlighting your strengths would be a good place to start. So maybe 2 pages and highlight your strengths.
Yeah. That's what I mean. This is very subjective, right? Some people can say like 2-3 pages, and people want to see just 1 page.
1 page,
and no, you never know. And what we saw like from previous meetups, and we've done over 20 meetups so far. Managers, there's no right standard, right? Like 1-2 pages. That's the most what I hear.
Yep.
I see description for something called automation architect. The job description seems to be the same thing as an that. What do you see an automation architect do?
Is this a Sweetgreen or is it a generic position you're asking about? If it's a generic position, I feel like an automation architect is someone who can like build infrastructures, like build up the frameworks from scratch, build toolings, work with the DevOps and dev team and build tools that that would support QA processes. So it's kind of like I think it's the same as an estate. And if we were hiring for an automation architect, I would expect them to do the same as a senior estate.
Yeah, yeah. For example, I have a friend, he worked at a company, Blackstone, Corner Blackstone, and they had an architect. They had senior SDETs, they had regular SDETs, and then they had architect and staff architect. So it's.
I hope
yeah.
they had like good differentiation between each job titles.
Yeah, I mean, the company is huge. There's like 3,000 people, right?
Oh,
and
wow.
that's why they have more structure. But if you go, for example, in a startup and they're looking senior as that equals to architect, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
How this is from Happy Money. What is the tech stack at the Sweetgreen? We use Node.js for. Okay, so the question is basically, what is the tech stack at Sweetgreen?
Yeah, so for our web front end, we use Ember.js, and the backend is Ruby on Rails with Postgres. And our iOS app is built on Objective-C, and our Android app is React Native. We use Nightbot.js for web automation and just for API testing. That's good. We use a similar one, Concept.js. Like we're not full-fledgedly using it yet, but we're trying to like understand if that's the right, framework for us. We use Postman for API testing at this point, but like I said, we are looking for a senior QA engineer who can help us assert that this is the right test framework for us.
Another question, what's the best way to practice for interview processes? What would you recommend?
Personally, I think having that confidence in the things that you worked on previously would automatically help in being successful in an interview. But if you do want to practice, then maybe do a mock interview with someone, maybe a friend or a colleague. I think that might help too.
Okay. About cover letter, like, do you require cover letter, or what do you think about it?
No, I feel like if the resume is well written, I feel, this is my personal opinion. Again, there could be, other, other thoughts, but if the resume is well written, I don't see a need for cover letter. At that point, I would think it's just a duplication of content.
Yeah, I can share, like, from my experience, I've never, maybe once, sent the cover letter, and it didn't really preventing me to get a job. However, like from previous meetups, we had this question for other QA managers. As I said, like maybe one or two companies. It's actually across a company, right? One or two companies, they actually required to submit the cover letter, no matter what. So it's again, there's no wrong and right answer, right?
And in that case, if they do require a cover letter, it should be a more personalized one rather than a generic cover letter, because at that point it means that they'll be looking at it. So you want to make a right impression.
Yeah, totally agree. Do you have UX designers in your team? I think.
Yes, so we do have a design team, which is part of the bigger engineering team. Yes, we do.
The next question will be also interesting. Experienced versus eager to learn, and girl, what stands out? Someone who has only 2 or 4 years of experience.
I'm not sure if I understood that question. Can you?
So I guess basically, in other words, if person is not senior enough, right? Would you hire him? But he expressing like eager to learn, right?
Yes. So it depends on the situation. So if it's a situation like we are in today, where we don't have where the person that we are looking for, like the senior person that we are looking for, is the first person on the team, then we would want to make sure that they are experienced rather than eager to learn. Like I know I said earlier that it's okay if they want to learn JavaScript, we'll give them that time, but that means that they're also strong in some other language. Like they know the concept pretty well, and they understand. They're pretty confident in putting code together. So it depends on the situation totally. And someone who has only a 2 to 4 years experience can definitely, if they have the passion to learn, if they are eager to learn, we would definitely hire them for a senior, and that would be a problem.
Yeah. And let's do last question, and then we can move forward. Can ask which framework would you recommend for someone to learn GS?
So honestly, I haven't used a lot of JavaScript test frameworks at all. But I've played around with Mocha and Jest and Concept. And I feel like I'm more inclined towards Concept at this point because of how easy it is to use, and how much integration we could do, and how much we can expand it for future needs. But I haven't really looked into the full capabilities of Mocha and Jest and all these other JavaScript frameworks too. So I could, my knowledge is limited there.
Yeah, for example, in my previous company, we used Protractor, right?
Yes.
But I heard a lot that like Cypress is really popular nowadays.
Yes.
Taking over like Protractor and other frameworks. But I think again, it's very subjective here. I mean, there's no right or wrong frameworks. I think wherever you start learning, just go dig into that and learn, stick to that. And especially like Talia, what she said about robot framework, that was actually my very first automation framework that I actually started implementing. I learned a lot before. I learned with started with Java. I really was exhausted with Java and was suffering. That's what I would say. Then I was introduced to robot, and I think for person who is learning something from the scratch, that would be the best one. But you have to really not just on the surface, learn not on the surface, just try to dig into that and be a professional in at least one framework. And that's what Aparna said, that if you show them that you're really good in at least in one language and one framework, that means that you can
easily
pick up. Yeah, you can easily pick up. Thank you, Aparna. It was really helpful, useful information. I mean, yeah, totally.
Thank you.
And please stick to the end, guys. You can ask questions as well in the Slack. We'll try to answer all other questions, all right? Let's move forward. Okay, again, the next event for whoever just joined us will be this Saturday. We're gonna do a free online class for full stack JavaScript development with React. And if you are interested, you can screenshot this slide or hit me in a direct message in the Slack as well. I can send you a link. And welcome Ersin, Senior Test Engineer at Sweetgreens with the Mastering Menu Launches. And
hello, everybody.
Welcome, Ersin. And you can take it over with sharing the screen.
All right. Let me share my screen first. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So hello, everybody. I'm Ersin. I'm working in Sweetgreen. Aparna is my manager, by the way. I'm working there for almost 2.5 years, and I still love it. The team, the company, and the culture, and food, and everything. I'm a senior test engineer there, and I'm more specialized on JavaScript. The last question somebody was asking, which framework is actually better to learn? I would say all languages, this is like automation languages or programming languages, they all rely on the same structure, so the same algorithms. So if you do know the algorithm, if you know how the flows works, that's your driver license, think of that way. And the programming languages and the language that you are using is going to be a car. So if you have a driver license, you're going to be able to use any single car. It's in the beginning, you might have some difficulties. Some cars are good, some cars are bad. Like all languages, they have different like pros and cons. So I would just say if you learn a little like earlier level languages, you will know more about the algorithms and everything. But if you know like more modern languages like Concept and Python, that's like, it's more like user friendly because you can easily understand what's going on. But it's a little easier to learn, but you will not be able to see what's going on in the background. So it's more up to you. So would you like to be like write easier codes and to like write more about like easier code and understand, or if you really want to go to the background and see like what's going on in the background. So that would be like a personal choice. I'm more specialized on JavaScript. I mean, I just love JavaScript. I know a little bit about Python. I find Python pretty easy, like easier than JavaScript for sure, because it's like more user friendly and it's just like English. You're like talking or writing to each other, but they all have different difficulties and different pros. Anyway, going back to the work and my daily task in Sweetgreen is I am more an automation engineer than I do automate. For me, like if you repeat something, like if you repeat something continuously and the same thing, you probably should automate it. So when I joined the company, not sure if you do know about Sweetgreen's like menu, our menu changes, like we change our seasonal menu periodically. So so we need to verify this menu launches, like let's say after midnight, our new menu launches will be live on production, and we need to verify this. In the beginning, it was not that much hard because we had about 60 stores in entire USA, and we could do that manually. So the store numbers were increasing, and then it was just taking maybe 10, 15 minutes more. But if it's too much, then we were including another person to test with us. So it went to 70, 80, 90, but then it started like taking so much time because we have so many stores and the company is growing. We are having like more like locations right now. So it required the automation for us, like because we cannot do everything manually. We are actually doing the same thing for every single store. So to automate this menu was a little challenging because not sure if you guys see in our menu is like we have different regions, and every region has different pricing. So let's say one of our salad is fish taco, which is one of my favorite one. It has different price in Los Angeles and has different price in New York, or if like in Boston or Chicago. So this was our first challenge. And the second challenge is we have different ingredients sometimes because of the location of the place was kind of hard to like supply the ingredients. Like one of them was like fish taco, includes salmon, and to keep the salmon fresh and to deliver it to Texas area was kind of hard, so we need to change it. So some ingredients were changing, and what it causes, like our calories and the salads changes. It is the same within the same region, but it's different it changes from region to region. So this was our second challenge. So what do we need to do? Because we cannot automate one single menu item for entire fleet, because it has different pricing in everywhere, and also the different ingredients and calories. So what happened here is the first thing is, like I said, we do have our pricing and everything is being similar in a region. So our regions are Northern California, South California, and New York, Boston, Chicago. So for that, we have to classify our stores. So if you guys can see my screen here, so we have here our region name and the stores under our region. So as you guys can see, we have, like, for Boston area, we have now like 155 different locations. So testing this manually is almost impossible, or maybe it will take a week for testing entire menu for like manually. This is our Southern California, and another 350 store, and Northern California, Chicago. So this way we can fix the pricing issues and the calories based on like store's location. But another thing is, the same menu item can have different ingredients in different location. So we also need to classify the menu items. Here I have the same menu items file for like every single location. Let's say chicken pesto parm, it's one of our salad, and this salad has, like, this salad's price is $11.95 in Chicago, $13.25 in New York, and in DMV it's $11.25, and Boston. So you can see it changes. Sometimes it's the same, but generally it changes from region to region. And here we have our calorie information. And now we have our ingredients here. So this is the one menu item that we are launching on our seasonal menu launch. And here we will have another one here. And here we have our drinks. They all, like, are the same format, and they all work on the same flow. And we have our removed menu items. We have our removed ingredients. Sorry guys, if you have any questions, I'm just going to respond them as soon as I can. And we have everything we need here. So we are able to check a specific menu item on a specific store here. So what do we need to do? The next is, by the way, how did I write this? Here, let me just open this. Let's say chicken pesto. This is our menu, or the sweetgreen.com. So if you go here, and you'll see, yeah, here I'm checking this, inspecting this element. This entire is an element. I'm inspecting here, and the name here is, we actually put the CSS tags in the code. So this is our code, like CSS tag here. And when I go inside here, every single menu items here, ingredients have their CSS tags. So those ingredients are actually CSS tag. What I will do is, like, I will go to every single menu on our store. Here we can see, like, this part, order.sweetgreen.com link is the same. And the next, we call it slug, is a restaurant name. So these names are, as you can see here, here. For the Texas area, these are the stores we have. So what we are going to do it here is going to navigate the store URL. This is base URL. We are going to navigate the URL / like store name / menu. That's what where we are navigating to. So now we can go back to our JS files. So the first one is like seasonal new menu launches. So when on a menu launch, what happens is our like store team, they upload the new, first they remove the previous menu items, and then they upload the new menu items. So what we do is we go every single store on a web page, we verify that that menu item they exist there, and the menu item's calorie, pricing, and the ingredients exist on the menu item. So sometimes some stores doesn't sync because we don't have direct API integration between our stores and the POS versus Ola environments. So sometimes it's missing. That's why we need to verify this. Or maybe like a store management team, instead of 12.95, they can put 13 because we are human and we can make mistakes. So yeah, we have our stores, we have our menu items, and here we have our codes. Really quick about this script is, I have this menu items files, like this stores menu items file in every single JSON file. So for Houston area, I have catfish salad and I have chicken pesto. And for East Coast, I have harvest bowl and chicken pesto. Like sometimes we put different menu items on different regions. And for Southern California, same thing. I have harvest bowl and chicken pesto. But harvest bowl is actually like Boston, it's $10.95 in Boston area, but it's $12.95 in California area. So when I do run this, I need to run this script specific for regions. So how do we do is like stores menu, like the management team, they sync for, let's say, Texas area. And once it's done, they tell me that, hey, the Texas area is done. So can you check it? What happens here, I run this menu, like this JS file. And in this JS file, so here I have, I think, I'm assuming some of you guys know a little bit about like reading the files from another directory. I have config, I read the config file from here. So this script pulls the config file and then pulls the menu items file, like East, menu items like for Southern California, Northern California, Houston, and 32nd, this is our special area. So when I manually write it like Texas here, and the region is Texas. So below here, we just check the region. What region did I put? Texas. When I put the Texas here, it just say my zone is menu items.Houston, menu item Houston.json. So right now, my reference will be this file. That is menu item.Houston. So when I run Texas, I'm going to run Texas region for chicken pesto parm and Cajun catfish salad. So going back to the store, that scripts here. I'm in right directory here, my directory is here, and then, okay. Let's say, we are going to run test dash. So here I'm navigating to these stores. As you guys can see up in here, like arrive apartments. This is our one location we are doing. And here, it's gonna run arrive apartments, and it's going to run main Walker, it's going to run Rice Village, it's going to run Montrose, and then it will give me the result. Sorry guys, I think I hit the browser by mistake. So as you can see, it's running main Walker for chicken pesto, and then it's gonna run main Walker for catfish. And if the store is not available for online ordering, I'm skipping that. And I'm just showing that this store is not available for online ordering. And here, if you see here, it's failed. So when I check the fails, that it doesn't find chicken pesto parm in that region. So what I do is I just report this to our team, and I'm just saying that, hey, chicken pesto, it doesn't exist in Texas and in this store, and they resync it. And after they resync it, I just rerun it again. So just for 4 stores, it took only 30 seconds to run. And imagine if you do this like manually, you have to go to every single store and then you have to rerun it and like check the store manually, and it would take like maybe 10 minutes. And if I have any ingredients are out of stock, I do report it here. And I also check this with the menu team, just saying that, let's say, and Montrose, we are missing catfish, cajun from catfish. Sorry, we have removed cilantro. We are missing cilantro. And the management team take care of this if it's like related to our menu launch, or if that's just like because the store is out of stock. And the other one, the other JS script is removed menu items. So where do I read those is here. Removed menu items from config file. So again, I'm running for Texas. And here it goes, every single store. And then whatever I put in removed menu items, it is checking if the web page has, I'm just taking like a get page source and like compare with the removed menu items that I put in my file, and it shouldn't be there. So I have 4 menu items. So I'm checking the same store 4 times, like 4. Check the store for curry chickpea bowl that I put some dash here to just put something garden cup, miso bowl, garden cup 1. So 4 times for every single store. So like it's 20 different controls. By the way, I think it's finished already. So here, checking an apartment for curry chickpea bowl, for garden cup, for miso bowl, for whatever I put here, it's checking, and this takes only a couple of seconds. Our last one, which is going to be, removed ingredients. So if our store team removes the ingredients and I need to like run entire fleet for that region to make sure that our store doesn't have that ingredients anymore, because otherwise customer will order online, but we don't have that ingredients in the store. So we shouldn't have that ingredients in our menu. .js. Here I'm using Texas because Texas has very limited stores. So for that, we need, like, it's gonna end up really quick. Otherwise, you guys are gonna hate me because it's gonna take 10 minutes and I don't want to bore you with that. So as you guys can see, I'm checking like the removed ingredients from every single store.
This is the most yummy presentation I ever saw.
I'm sorry, what?
This is the most yummy presentation. That makes me hungry.
Yeah, I mean, I love Sweetgreen salad. So yeah, as you guys can see, it takes really quick. It took like, can see 51 seconds to run entire region and check like more than like 50 controls. So let's go back to our scripts and see how do we do that. Yeah, here, as I said, I inject the menu items file here, and I inject all of them just to make sure that we have all menu items in our file, because I'm going to change the region here, and I need to put the region name exactly how it is in our config file. So yeah, I need to take this, or I can take it like Philly. So when I take Philly, and here, if I put it in my region, my new region will be Philly. So now I'm testing for Philly. So in my if control here, if it's in Philly, so it's on East Coast. So I'm going to run in menu items East file, which is right here. So I'm going to check harvest bowl and chicken pesto parm. And then moving forward, now I saw my store and I see my region and everything, right? After this, I need to check my like menu items file. Inside my menu items file, the zone is going to be Philly. Inside it, I'm just saying like navigate to config file.base URL here. Navigate to, oh, it's going to take forever. 1 second. Here, navigate to this URL, and after that, plus add store name / menu. So it's gonna go to inside that region. It's gonna go every single store, and it's going to check, get the get the URL here, and make sure if any of our URL doesn't have like / unavailable, which is like online ordering is unavailable, or 404 file. So if I have any 404 error, I'm going to report this to our team and they're going to take care of it. Or if the online ordering is unavailable, I don't have any control over it. It's just the store is closed, so I cannot check it, nor the customers. After here, I'm going to wait for one element here to be available. After one element is available, and I'm going to get entire page source. And then I'm just saying that expect text page source not to contain the menu item. So what I'm doing is here, expect that page source to not have any of this removed here. Like shouldn't have any of this because I removed these menu items here. So these shouldn't be in my new menu anymore. Going back to new menu launch here, it's a little more complicated, but the same flow in here, verify, analyze which region is that, and then read that menu items file, go to the stores, and then for every single store, I'm going to check pricing and calories for menu items. Here I see like, yeah, these are all basic files. Here I have validate text. I'm getting salad price here, and then the salad price is going to be in my menu items, in my menu items file. Like let's say Boston, I'm going to take 1095 here, and then let's close this, and get the menu items price in the web page, and then compare them and validate that they are the same. And if they are not the same, then I should have an error. So let's check how this works. Go to menu items file. Let's say instead of in Texas, chicken pesto parm is gonna be instead of 1175, it's gonna be 1075. Which one was that? Okay. Yeah, as you guys see, it's like our web page / store name / and this is unavailable, so I'm skipping this part here. And it shouldn't fail because it's unavailable. It's nothing that I can control. And we have one ingredient is missing here, but that's because store is out of stock. So here, as you can see, for every single store, like you see, like in Rice Village, chicken pesto failed. And when you go here, says the expected value is supposed to be 1075, but in web page, I'm seeing it 1175, which is wrong. And for the next store, the same error. For the next store, the same error. So what happens is I just like either it didn't fail, like it didn't sync, or our management, like the restaurant management team, like probably made a mistake. So I reported this. I say in Texas area, in those stores we have different stores, and like I told you, there was one ingredient we were missing, and I'm having another error here saying that couldn't find this ingredient. So I tell them, and hey, I have this ingredient is missing, and the management team tells me that this is just out of stock. So it's not an error, it's just the store doesn't have that ingredients anymore. And here, let's go. I checked the salad price, and now exactly with the same function, I'm going to get the calories here now. And here I'm just getting the calories on web page, and here I'm validating the salad calories that I have here in my menu items file, the calorie here, and compare that with menu item calorie, the calorie that I found in my website, and I need to verify them, and then if they are like matching, then it's correct. And let's move on next. In next here, ingredient lookup. So here I created a loop because I don't want to go back and forth for every single ingredient. Within the same menu item, I'm clicking on menu item, and then in menu item we have modification. Modification is just if you don't want any ingredients in your menu item, or if you want to add additional ingredients. So, but as a base, we need to have every ingredient that we're supposed to put for that menu item. Here, I'm just creating a loop, and in this loop, I'm just like checking and making sure that every single menu items try to catch that element, because every menu item has like a CSS tag. Try to catch that. If you cannot find it, then try to catch the banner message. The banner message says that we are missing like cilantro, just like we saw it. And if we see that this item is like, if you see this banner saying that this ingredient is out of stock, just print that out so I can know that the store is just out of stock. If I haven't, like if I have ingredient is missing and I cannot see that banner message, that means it's a mistake. If that's a mistake, just that means like they made a mistake on syncing. And here I wrote those, every error on my Slack. So as you guys see, I was like first running, I run Philly a little bit. I was like, you can see every single output here on my Slack. So other team members can see what I'm doing here. So if something has failed, what is the error? So they can see this. This is also a reference for them. And what else I can tell for this? Yeah, that's actually pretty much what it is. So right now we are using this scripts to verify our menu items, like in automated. But let's go beginning in the beginning. This was taking like maybe 8 hours for like 5 people, which is like 40 hours of man work. After automating this, it took like with 1 person 8 hours. So we reduced our workload from 40 hours to 8 hours, which is pretty big improvement. What's going to be our next is we are going to use concept actually, because it's like a little more modern, it's easier to use, and it's more reliable. And we are going to use concept, and we are going to run the scripts on Circle CI. On Circle CI, we are going to like make a scheduling. Like we are going to schedule what time does these scripts need to be run, and I don't even have to be on my laptop, and I don't need to like run them manually. Every menu launch after midnight, it will run and it will give us a report. And another thing we are thinking to implement is running the stores like in container parallelly. Right now, each time I'm running one store, and once I'm done with one store, I'm moving to next store. If I'm done with that, I'm moving next. So our next improvement will be like run let's say 5 stores each time. So my like 8 hours work will be 1 hour. And that's not going to be my work. It's going to be like Circle CI's work. So basically, I will not be working on my laptop, and I will just wake up in the morning and open my laptop, and I will see these results. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So if you guys have any questions, I would love to.
All right, thank you very much, Ersin. Let's see, I think major question Aparna already answered. Let's move to the Slack. So let's do this way. So as I mentioned before, we usually do networking in the live sessions. And since we don't have this opportunity, let's have some fun in the Slack. Let's do this way. Just do selfie with your phone and post it in the networking channel, and just describe what are you looking for. I mean, just describe yourself, like where you're located, what are you doing. Like, for example, I'm a Evgeny Kim, test engineer, Los Angeles or Irvine. And at this moment, I'm not looking for, but maybe, who knows. And if we do have other QA managers or QA or hiring managers who are looking for people, please post your jobs opening there in networking channel, or we have also specifically a jobs channel in the Slack, so you can put it there as well. All right, thank you everyone for participating. So let's move forward to the Slack, and I'll do this right now. I'll do my selfie with you guys. Here we go. And let's post it in the Slack. And everyone, thank you for coming today. And I'll see you all on Saturday, whoever will come on Saturday's class. But I'm planning to do the next QA meetup on the next month. Okay. Talia, Ersin, Aparna, thank you very much. I think that was really awesome today.
Thank you for the opportunity, and it was nice to meeting everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.